Imagine standing on a high dive, right? In mid-jump, someone just replaces the water in the pool beneath you with a totally different element.
Oh man, that is a terrifying image.
Right. I mean, gravity changes, buoyancy changes. That spike of midair panic you'd feel, that is exactly what the modern workforce is experiencing right now with AI.
Yeah, that visceral stomach-dropping feeling, it's everywhere.
Exactly. So today we're jumping into a dialogue piece by two thinkers, Beebz and WAV-E, and it's titled, Will AI Take Your Job or Create Something Completely New?
It's such a timely piece, too.
It really is. And, whether you're listening right now on your commute to a tech meeting or you're just reading the headlines and feeling that familiar knot in your stomach, you definitely know this fear is universal.
Absolutely. It touches basically every industry.
Because for most of us, a job isn't just an income, right? It's our entire life structure. I mean, it dictates when we wake up, who we talk to, and frankly, how we measure our own worth. Okay, let's unpack this.
Which is exactly why the anxiety surrounding this transition is so acute. When you perceive that your entire structural foundation is about to be dismantled by an algorithm, panic isn't just some emotional overreaction.
No, it makes total sense.
Right, it's a completely illogical reaction. But the research we're looking at today actually pivots away from that panic.
Yeah.
It addresses this massive collective misunderstanding about what artificial intelligence is actually replacing.
Right, because before we can even begin to talk about the future of work, we have to define what is actually under threat today.
We have to get specific.
Exactly. We've all heard that familiar tech industry mantra, AI takes tasks, not humans. The source points out that AI targets repetitive work, predictable systems, and basically anything that follows a strict pattern.
Which sounds comforting until you really think about it.
Right, because, hold on, we have to pause there. For anyone listening who's looking at their daily to-do list right now, at what point do enough automated tasks equal an obsolete profession?
That is the big question.
Because if my entire job is just like a sequence of predictable patterns and the AI masters those patterns, aren't I just out on the street?
Yeah, you start doing the math and it gets scary.
I mean, if my job is the factory assembly line and the AI is the machine stamping the metal over and over, it feels like I'm not just losing a task, I'm losing my entire livelihood.
It's the ultimate fear. And, it's grounded in a reality we really have to acknowledge. Yes, some specific rules, exactly as they exist today, they will vanish entirely.
Right.
The dialogue doesn't sugarcoat that at all. What's fascinating here is that to understand the mechanism of what actually survives, we have to look really closely at the definition of a predictable system.
Okay, so break that down for us.
Well, AI can absolutely stamp the metal flawlessly. It can run, I don't know, 1 million simulations to optimize that stamping process to be 10 times faster.
Sure, it's perfectly efficient.
Exactly. But the AI is not deciding why we are building that specific machine in the first place.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right. It isn't evaluating how that machine impacts the community or sensing some shift in human desire that suggests, hey, maybe we should stop stamping metal and start molding plastic instead.
Okay, let me think of an analogy. Let's unpack this with a mechanism we've actually seen before. Think about the transition from clerks doing ledger math by hand to the invention of spreadsheet software like Excel.
Oh, that's a perfect parallel.
Because before Excel, a massive part of an accountant's day was quite literally just carrying the one, like just doing raw arithmetic for hours.
Exactly. The actual execution of the math was the predictable system.
Right. And when Excel arrived, it didn't eliminate the accounting profession at all. It just eliminated the task of manual calculation.
It wiped out the predictable pattern.
Exactly. But because the accountant was no longer spending 40 hours a week doing raw addition, they suddenly had the bandwidth to actually look at the numbers. They could say, hey, if we restructure these assets, we can save the company $1 million.
They completely leveled up.
Yeah, they moved from being human calculators to financial strategists.
And that is the exact mechanism at play here, just scaled up from basic math to cognitive processing. When a system is predictable, it can be coded, and it will be automated. That's just a given.
Right, there's no stopping that.
But human desire, cultural nuance, strategic vision, those are highly unpredictable, chaotic variables. By stripping away those predictable execution tasks, AI essentially forces the human operator to step away from the assembly line and move into the architect's office.
I love that. The job isn't the stamping of the metal, the job is the strategy surrounding it.
Precisely.
But, if those predictable tasks disappear, well, nature abhors a vacuum. Something has to fill that void. And that moves us from the anxiety of what we might lose to the reality of what actually comes next.
Which is where things get really wild.
Yeah, because the dialogue we are looking at points backward to a historical blueprint, which is the rise of the internet.
It really is the closest parallel we have for a paradigm-shifting technology expanding the economy like this.
The text highlights that before the internet, say, if you told someone in 1985 that you were going to be a content creator or an app developer or a social media influencer,
They would have looked at you like you had two heads.
exactly. Those words would have sounded like absolute gibberish. So the argument Beebz and WAV-E are making is that the real question isn't what jobs are disappearing, but what jobs are about to be created.
Right, the invisible future job market.
But I have to push back here for a second. Is this time actually different? Because the internet was essentially a distribution network. It was basically an incredibly fast library in a global mail system, right?
That's a fair assessment, yeah.
It was a tool. But AI, it feels different. It acts like an entity. You ask a search engine for a book, and it finds the book. You ask an LLM for a book, and it reads the book, synthesizes all the themes, and writes a sequel in the style of Hemingway.
Yeah, that's a massive leap.
That isn't just a tool. That's simulating cognition. Doesn't that change the rules of the game?
It does. And you're hitting on the exact difference between a pipeline and the water running through it. The internet reduced the friction of distributing information. AI reduces the friction of generating intelligence.
Okay. Generating intelligence, that's a huge distinction.
And the source validates that exact hesitation you're feeling. We are facing a shift that goes entirely beyond the scope of any previous industrial or digital revolution.
Because it's not just moving data around anymore.
Right. If the internet created a job market based on global connectivity, AI is creating a job market based on an entirely new paradigm of accessible on-demand intelligence.
Which catapults us directly into what the authors call the unknown layer. Because this shift goes beyond just upgrading our pipelines, the resulting jobs are going to sound entirely alien to us right now.
Completely foreign.
We are moving out of historical comparisons and into what feels like a science fiction novel, basically.
A science fiction novel that is actively becoming our economic reality day by day.
Right. So, the source outlines some theoretical future jobs that emerge when reality expands alongside this new intelligence. They list things like managing human-AI collaboration, designing environments for totally new forms of interaction.
Which already sound pretty complex.
Yeah, and using this tech to explore the deepest oceans or deep space. But the one that absolutely stopped me in my tracks when I was reading this was translating non-human communication.
Yeah, that one really stretches the imagination to its absolute limits.
It does. Like, how does that even work practically? Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's use an analogy for this.
Okay, lay it on me.
Imagine humanity has lived its entire existence just staring at the surface of the ocean. We know things are down there, right? But we just can't perceive them.
We don't have the tools.
Exactly. Then suddenly, someone hands us a pair of deep-sea diving goggles and a pressure suit. The ocean itself hasn't changed at all, but our ability to perceive its depth has completely transformed.
Oh, that's a great way to visualize it.
Suddenly, being a deep-sea explorer isn't a fantasy, it's a literal job description. AI is that pair of goggles, but for intelligence and data.
If we connect this to the bigger picture and look at the mechanics of how those goggles work, it actually removes the science fiction element entirely and makes it very real.
Really? How so?
Well, think about how a large language model works today. It analyzes billions of parameters of human text to find the structural, predictable patterns of language. It maps the syntax.
Right, it predicts the next word based on all that training.
Exactly. Now, take that exact same pattern recognition mechanism, but instead of feeding it human Wikipedia articles, you feed it decades of acoustic data from, say, whale clicks or bat echolocation.
Oh, wow. Data that is just far too massive and complex for a human ear or a human brain to map manually.
Precisely. The neural network processes that massive acoustic data set and starts finding the underlying structural syntax. It finds the actual grammar of the whale song.
Wait, really? It can find grammar in whale clicks?
Yes. It predicts the next click based on the vector space, just like it predicts the next word in an email you're typing. So when the source talks about translating non-human communication, it isn't magic.
It's just math.
It is the application of hyper-advanced pattern recognition to datasets we previously couldn't decipher. We are suddenly able to perceive a spectrum of reality we were entirely blind to. And an entirely new ecosystem requires a massive variety of human roles to sustain and navigate it.
Okay, the deep sea goggles sound incredible. I mean, I want to see that new ecosystem, but we have to bring this back down to earth for a second to the person listening right now on their morning commute.
Fair enough? The reality check.
Yeah, because the technology sounds magical, but what happens to the people actually living through this transition today? Because the future might look shiny, but the present is incredibly chaotic.
It's messy. Very messy.
The authors emphasize that the most pressing concern isn't actually the job market itself, it's the psychological toll on the people going through it.
Because the technology is evolving exponentially faster than human psychology is built to adapt. We just can't keep up emotionally.
Exactly. The dialogue notes that some people will resist the change, some will adapt, and a huge portion of the workforce is just going to feel completely lost. So what does this all mean for us today?
It means a lot of discomfort.
Right. It's very easy for an academic think piece to label this a transition phase. That sounds neat and tidy, but living through it, it feels exhausting. It's kind of like deciding to completely remodel your house while you are still living inside it.
Oh, man. You're tearing down the load-bearing walls of your daily routine.
Right. You know the new house is going to be amazing. Sure, the blueprints are gorgeous, but right now, today, there's literal drywall dust in your coffee.
Your kitchen sink is probably sitting in the backyard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are heating up soup in a microwave plugged into a bathroom outlet. Every system you relied on to feel competent and stable is just in flux. You don't care about the beautiful open concept living room you'll have next year. You just want a normal Tuesday today.
And that feeling of living in the drywall dust, is where the source offers a deeply grounded, stabilizing perspective. The authors explicitly state that feeling lost right now is entirely okay.
It's normal.
It is expected. Every single transition phase in human history, from the Industrial Revolution to the dawn of the Information Age, felt deeply unstable to the people actually on the ground.
Because they were losing what they knew.
Exactly. Think about the psychological friction of losing your competence. If you spent 20 years becoming the fastest, most efficient manual ledger accountant in the firm and suddenly accelerate.
You haven't just lost a task.
No, you've lost your status, you've lost your mastery. Feeling disoriented isn't a personal failure or a lack of resilience. It is literally just the mechanical friction of a society undergoing a hyperspeed paradigm shift.
So if we are living in the drywall dust and the friction is completely inevitable, how does a listener actually survive it? How do we navigate the remodel without losing our minds or, our livelihoods?
We have to change our strategy.
Right. Which brings us to the winning strategy. The dialogue outlines who will actually thrive in this shift, and it's a complete reversal of what we've been taught for decades.
It fundamentally changes the definition of professional value.
Because we've always been told that the advantage belongs to the people who know everything.
Yep.
The expert with the most hard skills, the person who memorized the most coding languages or the most complex legal precedents.
The human encyclopedia model.
Exactly. But the source argues that the advantage now belongs to those who possess what we might call the curiosity advantage. It's the people who are flexible, willing to constantly learn, and this is the hardest part, willing to let go of what they thought their life structure had to be.
That concept of letting go is the ultimate survival mechanism right now. In machine learning, there is a concept called overfitting.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, if you train an AI model too rigidly on past data, it becomes incredibly accurate at predicting the past, but it completely fails when presented with new, unseen data in the real world.
Oh, because it's too set in its ways.
It breaks because it is too rigid. And humans do the exact same thing. If you overfit your identity and your skills entirely to the job market of, say, 2020, you are going to break in 2026.
Wow.
Rigid things shatter when the foundation shifts.
I love that concept, human overfitting. It means that, for the first time in modern history, being a rigid know-it-all is a profound disadvantage.
Because all that you know is actively expiring.
Exactly. Letting go, which usually carries this negative connotation of giving up or failing, right?
Yeah.
Is reframed here as a highly competitive, vital professional skill.
It's an asset.
The authors don't view this as a collapse of human utility, but as a grand expansion of it.
This raises an important question, though, and it forces a very uncomfortable but necessary reflection for the listener.
Okay, what's the question?
How much of your current daily output, your standard 9-to-5 routine, is essentially just executing predictable systems? How much of your mental bandwidth is tied up in what the authors call doing things to survive?
For a lot of people, it's almost all of it.
Right, because the ultimate takeaway from this dialogue is a radical reframing of the threat itself. AI might just be the exact mechanism that removes the job you were never meant to have.
The job you were never meant to have. Man, that is such a clarifying way to look at it. If you strip away the administrative overhead, the repetitive data entry, the endless formatting of the metal stamping,
You free yourself up.
you make space for something better. You make space for actual alignment. It's less about surviving the workday and more about engaging in the things that humans are uniquely built for.
When you remove the burden of executing predictable systems from human shoulders, you isolate the core of what actually drives progress. Curiosity, empathy, complex strategy, and vision.
The things an algorithm can't simulate.
Right. AI can instantaneously generate 1,000 variations of a marketing plan or 1,000 lines of code, but it cannot generate the initial spark of human curiosity that asks the compelling question in the first place.
It requires the human to point the lens.
Exactly. The transition is messy, the drywall dust is real, but the destination is an environment where humans are finally permitted to act like humans, rather than biological cogs in an execution machine.
Which brings us full circle, really. We started this deep dive looking at the raw, visceral fear of losing our life structure, the midair panic of the diving board.
The free fall.
Yeah, but by deconstructing what AI actually replaces, which is just the execution of predictable patterns, we realize it's just clearing the floor. We are moving from the dread of the assembly line to the genuine awe of translating non-human intelligence and exploring new frontiers of reality.
The landscape of how we work is fundamentally altering, but your most critical asset remains entirely yours.
Exactly. Your most valuable tool right now isn't a certification you earned a decade ago. It's your curiosity. It's your flexibility. It's your willingness to put on the new deep-sea goggles and see what the ocean actually looks like.
The individuals who thrive will be the ones who view the blank slate not as a loss of structure, but as a canvas for unprecedented leverage.
And that leads to a final thought I want to leave you with today, something to really chew on long after this deep dive ends. We've talked about new industries, sci-fi jobs, and translating whale song.
All the wild stuff.
Right. But if AI truly removes the survival jobs we were never meant to have in the first place, what if the very concept of having a job as a mandatory, discrete 9-to-5 activity is what ultimately disappears?
Oh, that's deep.
What if, in this grand expansion, the entire concept of work becomes entirely indistinguishable from simply pursuing your own deepest, weirdest curiosities?
The ultimate paradigm shift.
Think back to that diving board from the beginning. You are in midair. The water has been drained. It is terrifying. But maybe, just maybe, the element they replace the water with isn't something you fall into.
It's something else entirely.
Maybe it's an element that allows you to fly. You just have to learn the new rules of gravity. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, stay flexible, and we'll see you next time.
Until next time.